Welcome everybody to this edition of the VR cast hosted by the VR Business Club. It's my great pleasure to have you here and welcome you here in this beautiful building with this beautiful location and the Golden Gate Bridge as every week here for every second week in front of us, which kind of makes us feel almost somewhere else than where we are right now. So it's great to have you here. Again, as always, we have a wonderful guest I'll introduce in a moment. We have a question and answer session, obviously. For now, I will all mute you, so it's easier for Géraldine. Thank you very much. And also, I would like to welcome those guests on the YouTube live stream. There's I think more and more actually joining on the live stream, which is great as well, because this is kind of made for eternity, this session. So we're not only doing this now, but actually for eternity. So I'll mute you now, if you have a question whilst Géraldine is presenting, then just raise your hand and so we can unmute you. So to my today's guest, it's Géraldine Perriguey. I hope I pronounced that correctly. I'm still practicing that. The founder of xrpedagogy, and I really kind of came across Géraldine and her work, and I thought that's something we have to bring to the VR cast, because such a highly relevant topic, kind of how we use VR, AR, XR for the education of our next generation, of our youngest, our children. The challenges for parents, homeschooling, not only in the COVID-19 situation, but in general. I think this is the generation which will push kind of the limits. They are playful, they are curious, they want to be part of that. So it is my really great pleasure to have Géraldine with us tonight. So Géraldine, welcome, and the stage is yours. Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you, Michael.
I'll have some hearts as well.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming. So just give me some heart to tell me that you're here and you hear me properly, and just to feel that we're all in the same room.
Yes.
Emojis are coming. Oh yeah. So we have a question already. Are you okay, Maren? Yes. Okay, so we'll have a question Q&A session by the end, but if you have a question, feel free to ask. It's a very interactive, and thank you, Michael, for your introduction and for inviting me here. It's a real pleasure.
Absolutely,
So today, I'm going to move the slide, sorry, there we go. So today I'm going to speak about the use of VR in education and how to use a new immersive pedagogy in VR. So I will show you the summary of the talk. Sorry, here we go. So I will present xrpedagogy, who we are, then I'll explain why virtual reality is an opportunity for education, what is the specificity of pedagogy in VR. I will present the precautions for the use of VR with kids or recommendations. And I'll take a few examples with potential for teachers, for homeschoolers, and also maybe for parents. And to finish, I'll take the example of our project and share what we learned so far by working with teenagers on the development of a VR-based training for hurricane preparedness, because we're based in Guadeloupe. It's an island in the Caribbean Sea. So we'll have a Q&A at the end, but I can take short questions during the presentation. So, okay, let's go. So here is xrpedagogy team. So this little purple guy in the center of Goji mascot, the mascot of our company. So I am Géraldine, the CEO and co-founder of xrpedagogy, and I like to present myself as a coach or researcher in child psychology applied to virtual environment. I graduated a university degree in virtual reality applied to psychology at Paris. So I co-founded xrpedagogy with my husband, Pierre, who is the tech lead of our company and the IT specialist on the right. And recently, Joanna Biasimuto joined the team, and she's our community manager specialized in XR and passionate about video game and VR. So at XR Pedagogy, we believe VR, AR, and MR should be easy to use for teachers and homeschoolers. And our goal is to provide online courses for teachers and parents of homeschoolers to help them feel comfortable to use XR technologies. So we aim to master the specificity of pedagogy, and we encourage students to design projects in the real world thanks to what they experimented or learned in the virtual world. So this is basically our vision. Okay. I have a little delay when I click on the next slide. There we go. So I'm going to start by why VR is a great opportunity for education of our children. So VR environments appear promising in its ability to bridge the gaps of other commonly established educational formats. So here I show the summary of potential VR when used in educational purpose. So motivation and engagement are particularly improved in a virtual environment, especially by integrating gamification. VR makes it possible to segment and simplify learning to make it easier. It introduces an original flexibility and the possibilities of presenting information to the learner in multiple formats and point of views. And immersion itself is a learning catalyst. So also mistake can take a real pedagogical stature because they are making it possible to observe the consequences by supporting various ways of explaining it. And also VR environments are usable for people with disabilities, which can be very important for activity requiring the student to move. And it's a great media to encourage creativity, and Avatar can even enhance these aspects. So VR is a great tool for collaborative learning, even when the students are not physically present in the same place in reality. That's super important, especially right now. And most of all, virtual reality allows the introduction of the body in the learning process, so facilitating sensory motor anchoring. But I think the ultimate potential of VR is to make the learning experience a pleasant and enjoyable experience. It's just really fun. So let's see, there we go. So in research, different models of pedagogy and virtual reality learning environment emerge. Dalgalmo and Liz in 2010 argue that representational fidelity and learner interaction are the main characteristic of 3D virtual reality learning environment, and the construction of identity, sense of presence, and co-presence were the three characteristics of the learner's experience. So that was the basics of the starting point of the pedagogy in virtual reality. And then Fowler proposed to extend the Dalgalmo and Liz model based on three learning stages of maze. That's why I mentioned maze model, and suggested empathy, reification, and identification as three learning stages for a new pedagogy and virtual learning environment. So the ability to identify and emphasize with the concept is critical to understanding it. And likewise, the ability to make the concept more concrete, reification, is a key complement to task immersion. And finally, maze and Fowler dialogue stage depend on learner having a deep enough understanding of concept to allow them to engage in a thoughtful and a structured discussion. So basically, there are three stages, and which are emphasize, reification, and being able to dialogue. But we may wonder, what is the specificity of pedagogy in VR? How to define the new role of teacher? I can give you a key takeaway. We kind of starting to describe when teaching in VR here at XR Pedagogy. So we must design a specific learning experience that best meets the pedagogical needs of the learner. In VR, the presence of an instructor has beneficial effects, and that's a very recent research from the researcher called Simon in 2019. So we actually show that it's important to have the instructor presence. Also, exposure to environment is not enough. It's crucial to prepare the session considering the before, during and after the VR experience. You must accept the necessary wow effect. At the beginning, you have students really amazed, and there is a time where you actually have to wait for that to happen. And also the typical things that ask questions rather than state knowledge, spend more time creating a system for evaluating failure rather than measuring what has been achieved. Carefully follow what the student does with their senses in virtual reality. You can continually stimulate curiosity with these 5 senses using the highlight of an object or appearance of a sound or something like an emoji. I could like this. Here you go. You can encourage your student to create funny things. Creativity and humor is a form of intelligence to be exploited in VR. And you must assign spaces to create, spaces to analyze, and spaces to exchange on what they learn. And I think most of all, the new role for teacher in VR is to facilitate the link with real environment of the students. So students should be able to design projects in the real world based on learning in the virtual world. And that is also crucial. Well, that was the overview of the few highlights of specificity of pedagogy in VR. Now we're going to go through the safety. So again, today in scientific research, there is very little study on the subject of the precautions to be taken in the use of virtual reality with children. So some studies consider virtual reality to be risky, and others see beneficial effects such as a distraction tool for pain or in cancer treatment, for instance. The long-term effects are unclear, and the subject is still very controversial. So in other words, at the moment, we don't know really the effect of using virtual reality headset on children, especially in the long term. So we made our opinion at xrpedagogy, and we believe there are important risks for young children, but it can be a fantastic tool for teenagers. So mainly risks are a distinction between what is real and what is unreal, which is establishing gradually up to 5-6 years old. The concept of self-recognition is developed very early, around 0 to 2 years old. However, it takes time to build and become a true cognitive awareness of self, and that leads of a risk of fake memories in children. So mixing memories between memories you would have acquired in virtual environment and memory you would acquire in real environment. So that's pretty important. Also, we can't really show, there's no study that's showing actually, or it's very controversial that VR leads to violence or more violent behavior. However, in video game, we show that children may become desensitized to real-life violence. So maybe when exposed really often to content that we would call violent, we may risk a desensitization. And also considering the evolution of neuromarketing, it is possible to condition the adult or child human brain, and the modularity, if it is acquired in childhood, would be even more entrenched. So I think it's also something to consider. So we offer some recommendation to help parents and teachers find their way. And by the end of the presentation, I will give you a link if you're interested in our ebook about that. And we'll try to update this ebook based on our new research and advance. But we decide to build this recommendation to start with something, and of course, I hope many more will do the same and improve that. For us, before the age of 6-7 years old, we recommend never using a virtual reality headset. At this age, the distinction between the real and the virtual is not yet clearly established, and the emotion experienced in the virtual world could be as violent as if they were experienced in the real world. By that I mean you don't want your child at 7 years old experiment like something like death, falling from a building, being shot, or some horrible thing like that, or even just the emotion to see a character dying. It can be too brutal. Between 8 and 12 years old, so you must know that HMD is normally prohibited before 13 years old, 1-3, by the manufacturers. However, if it would be used between 8 and 12 years old, we would recommend that it is supervised and exceptional used. It's a very short duration of use, less than 5 minutes, and never in the evening or before sleeping, as it is for many screen use. And experiences selected and tested by parents before. I think it's important to mention that because we believe that parents are the ones who know best their children, and they're the ones who should test the experience to ensure they're aware of what's going to happen. And also, we recommend that around 8 and 12 it should be only for a child who spontaneously requests it. What we've seen is that it's usually the little brother or the little sister that is curious of what the big brother and the big sister is experimenting. So it's usually the kinds of situation, but encouraging, it's maybe depending on the maturity of the child and the parent's decision for what I think. So you must clear the space to prevent the child from being injured also, and prevent pets from entering the virtual reality practice rooms. And discussion of the effect before, during, and after. And I think it's pretty important to ensure that you can speak about the emotion. So help the child take a step back. So this is between 8 and 12. Then after 13 years old, we still think parental control and systematic parental test on the choice of applications is necessary. Still never in the evening and before sleeping. You can also look for a manufacturer's recommendation per game. And I think it's interesting to have parental screens returns, at least initially. So, because your teenager may tell you, yeah, what's okay, it was a great experience, yeah, no, it's cool, I like it, I'm going to do it again. But then if you watch him, what is he actually doing? You will know what was his real emotion, because teenagers sometimes may not express properly what they feel. They don't have the tools for that, or not always at least. So maybe you want to start with a time limit, at least for eyes adaptation, no more than 20 minutes. You want to install communication before and after. This moment is pretty important. And never leave the child alone in front of content that you don't know. Encourage the child to speak the emotion experimented in VR. So this is basically our vision. So it's like, it's not dangerous, but I think it's a tool, so we must considering as it is, and not something that we can let our child alone with. So now we understood what is our vision in terms of use with children, and what is the new role for teacher, and how is the pedagogy in VR. Let's see how can we use VR for teacher. So there we go. So XR tools not only keep the learner interested, but also it keeps the learner going over time. So it's not just about making you want to learn, it's about making you want to continue learning. So here I'm going to present a few examples of experience and softwares that can be used in a classroom. And the first experience I took, I don't know if you know, it's Google Expedition. Have you tried? Have you ever, give me some emoji if you tried.
Raise your hand if you have. There's one. Yeah. Alexander.
1, 2, great.
Yeah.
Great.
Frank. Yeah, great.
Okay. So yes, it's particularly interesting, Google Expedition, because thanks to Expedition, a mobile device is enough to discover the magic of virtual and augmented reality. So you download a free application to access, and you have access to 900 visits, maybe more now, and in VR, and about 100 in AR. So you take your students to the end of the world, and I take this example of a temple Hindu that I would maybe not have the opportunity to go, but it's pretty interesting to bring children there. And also there is another project from Google, it's called Tour Creator, and teachers can create virtual tour or rouse the interest of their students by asking them to create their own immersive tours. And that is pretty interesting. I know a teacher in Hawaii Island who did that with their students and asked them to create their own tour, their own cultural tour of the island. So it is pretty interesting tool to use, and it's free and it's easy. Okay, give me a moment. There you go. So here, there are plenty of different application that you can use in classroom, and some application you can use both at home in classrooms and also for homeschoolers. But I select this four because traveling while black, for instance, is a cinematic VR experience that immerses the viewer in the long history of restriction of movement for Black Americans. So you are immersed in a real environment. But when I tried it, I really felt emphasized with what could be the challenge, and I think that's really interesting to use in classroom. Tilt brush, it's a very well known and lets you paint in 3D with virtual reality. If you've never seen that, go check on YouTube, there are plenty of fantastic video. So as they say, your room is your canvas, your palette is your imagination, so the possibility are endless. Body VR, and I think it is I used to be a biologist in mentioned life, and body VR was exactly what I dream about in the lab. So it's an educational virtual reality experience that takes the user inside the human body. So you travel through bloodstream, discover how blood cells work to spread oxygen through the body. It's pretty amazing. And CoSpace Edu is an amazing 3D creation web and app-based classroom tool, let's say. And it allows students to create in a 3D augmented and virtual reality environment. So basically students can create, and then they can either create augmented reality or either create environment in virtual reality. And then they can watch it using cardboard, the little cardboard from Google, or they can use the head-mounted device. So this kind of panel you can use for classroom, but also you can design your own experience. There you go. Now I'm going to show you for homeschooling. Homeschooling is one of the practices that is becoming more and more democratized in France and abroad at least, and they can offer a multitude of advantages compared to traditional schooling. However, when it comes to family education, it can quickly become a challenge to become familiar with the study of certain topics, like how to explain the planet, the organs, the human body, or some exotic ecosystems. So to put it simply, using VR we can go anywhere, and using AR we can bring anything that suits us and view it differently. So if you need to teach your children at home, you have the first example I show you on the right. It's an augmented reality example. It's called the Merge Cube. So Merge Cube is fantastic because you can buy it now. I think it's about 50 euros, but you can also Can you hear me at home? Because I've been muted for a second. Is it okay for you, Michael? Okay. Can you all send me some emojis if you can hear me properly? Yeah. Okay. Okay, we are all good. I think Michael will come back. It is fine. So let's come back to the presentation. So I was speaking about the Merge Cube. So you can buy it or you can print it for free. Then you download their app called Merge Explorer, which is still free for the moment, but I think they've got a freemium business model. But you also have app like Object Viewer app. So basically, you can launch an experience. So in this example, it's the solar system, but you can have an earth in the hand and such things like that. So you just scan the cube and then you visualize it differently. And it's already made. You don't need to be a developer. You just need to check which experience you want in the library, or you can also, using a suitable app, upload content. And you can watch it. So it's very interesting if you want to show molecular structure, you want to show anything, body, the lungs. So that's super nice. Another great tool is Mozilla Hubs. Do you know Mozilla Hubs? Not really? Okay, after the talk you must try Mozilla Hubs. It is simple, it is free, and it's online. So basically, you just go on their website, or you can use it with your Oculus or your hand-mounted device. Any computer VR, it's okay, it's WebXR. And one of the main differences between this and something like Zoom or Google Hangout is the use of spatial 3D audio. So multiple people can be speaking at once, depending on the proximity, as we experiment here in Alf Space. And everyone can share their screen at the same time, and it's fantastic for homeschooler who wish to teach concept to their kid and to other kids in the world, because sometimes for homeschooler it's very important to make sure that their children socialize with other children, are not alone with their parents. And it's sort of very interesting that they share sometimes teaching tools and so on. So it's a really super easy tool, and I like them for that. It's free, and you can also create your own room. So take the time to test it, because really it's interesting. You can fulfill a role of technological facilitator and collaborative work for homeschooler, and I think also for teachers. So I mentioned two other examples, which are Chernobyl VR. It's the very first virtual tour around the Chernobyl area, and this project combines video game mechanics with educational and movie narrative approach, and also breaking boundaries with science, which is an interactive virtual reality celebration of some history's most influential women scientists, and it's a very interesting experience. And it immerses the player in the life and time of Jane Goodall, Marie Curie, and Grace Hopper. So again, it's really a nice experience. So for parents, it's maybe an opportunity also to explain what can sometimes not be explained by words. I select one experience, which is interesting, but I think all the experience presented before can also be suitable as parents. So my new home is a 360 VR experience where you explore the refugee camp of Nyarubuzu in Tanzania, together with the children that live there. So the experience lets you walk through the camp as if you were a refugee child arriving at your new home in the refugee camp. So I can imagine how it is to emphasize and how it is to explain, okay, this is what they're living. You can imagine. So of course you make sure that your children are ready for that, and make sure that you test it before and it's aligned with your value. But it's a very interesting way. I'm changing slides, so it's a little delay. So here is our case today. So it's the use of VR to prepare teenagers for natural disaster. So we designed a VR-based game to train Caribbean teenagers for the natural disaster preparedness. And the aim of the project is to study the study of denial of hurricane risk. And the VR game could help the teenager to be able to better memorize the element of hurricane preparation and also to challenge the perception of danger in a harmless situation. And this very project explored the potential of immersive technology to teach teenagers and take them to test the consequences of their choices. So the project was part of the degree I did last year, and right now it's more a proof of concept. But we are working maybe with different companies who are interested to partnering with us to finish it and make sure that it will be very suitable not only for Caribbean teenagers. So, designing our environment, maybe I want to share, I can share with you how we did it. We wanted to understand how young people are prepared for hurricane today. So the preparation efforts are mainly based on 4 classic educational content methods in Guadeloupe. So you have distribution of leaflets, there is continuous publication of posts on social network, video on YouTube in French and in Guadeloupean Creole, and oral explanation proposed by the teaching staff during class hours. So although these approaches have been established for a long time and are valid from an educational point of view, they lack few ingredients. And especially what we study the risk perception aspects. So as I say, there's great opportunity for education, but also for disaster preparedness. It's in addition to learning, for that situation and investment, there could be considered as an opportunity as well. Because maybe you probably know, but virtual reality is an extraordinary tool to place someone in a situation, but the real situation does not allow it because it's too dangerous. So for many years, the potential of VR has been used, for instance, to simulate intervention on nuclear reactors or something like that. So the player is faced with critical, even extreme tasks that are safe for himself or for others. And VR will allow learners to gain some experience in the virtual with graduation of conditions, simulation, and real scenarios. In terms of investment, also application based on VR can provide a coherent multi-region and synchronous multi-organization training, so it's pretty interesting in our case. And it could help improve multi-organization coordination. So the investment is reasonable now in both time and resources required, and this training are scalable alternative. So it's all good arguments to develop a serious game for hurricane preparedness. So it's a medium, VR is a medium for exploration and experimentation, and to build our environment, we develop a user-centric approach by putting the learner in the position of co-builder of the virtual environment. So we work with teenagers from Guadeloupe as consultants, and we did brainstorming to imagine what could be an exciting environment to prepare for hurricane. And we work with teenagers who experienced hurricane and also with one who did not, and it was interesting. So this is the way we started to work, our methodology for the design. So in this figure, sorry, there you go. In this figure, you can see the player's overall progression in our game. So, and the player starts and it's a yellow alert, and automatically the level of alert is changing. And for now, we thought about every 5 minutes for our VR version to ensure the player won't spend more than 20 minutes in the game. And in this example, you see 2 situations, the reward system on the left, and the second situation we call the feedback system. So imagine the player complete all the challenges in the yellow alert, finding water supply, food supply, bathroom, radio station, etc. The player wins points. In the second situation, you see that the player hasn't completed all the challenges before the red alert turns violet because he has notification during the game. So basically, it looks like a Facebook notification, and it says it's like an enigma, something like this for the moment. In the feedback system, when the player knows, the idea we're working on is to find a balance between visualization of consequences, giving advice and clue, and maybe showing a video of a real person interviewed who experienced a hurricane in Guadeloupe. This is how it looks like. And when thinking of visualization of consequences, we can of course imagine a lot of extreme details. And one important recommendation as XR pedagogy we could make is, especially when using VR for natural disaster preparedness training, is to include ethics. And our way of ensuring that the player can live the experience anytime he wants or feel uncomfortable, it was to establish a code. So if you close your eyes and say stop, everything stop, and you're safe again with us. And because in many experiences in VR, sometimes it's not so easy to find the exit door. And I myself experimented the experience which challenged my acrophobia, and I was like trapped in my fear. And I understand what does it mean. I did not realize that I could just move the head-mounted device, the Oculus, I would be free. So sometimes it's important to make sure, especially if you work with children, with teenagers, they know how to escape or to say stop if it's too much. Okay, I'm sorry if my voice is not perfect. Can you hear me well, or is it distorted a little bit? Yeah, so. Okay. Is it good for you, Michael? Okay, I'm gonna keep on. If in case if it's my voice becoming too difficult to hear, just let me know. Okay, I'm gonna know all players' progressions. I'm gonna change slide. It's not working. Just a second. So here I'm sorry, Michael, I can't hear you.
Michael, you are muted somehow. We didn't hear you. Maybe we have to fix that. I don't know where the problem is.
Okay.
So he logged out. Maybe try to log in again, Géraldine.
Okay, fine. Can you hear me properly, Oliver?
Yeah, I hear you very well, and in the live stream, the people hear you very well too. So everything's fine till then.
Okay, perfect. So let's keep on. So here I wanted to speak about the level of realism for fidelity in learning behaviors. So there is another important challenge when considering the use of VR to prepare young people for natural disaster is the level of realism. So when using VR for disaster preparedness, the question of realism must be specified and argued. Realism of what, in relation to which situation, objects and description of references, from which objectives, etc. So the crucial objectives concern the fidelity of the expected learning behavior of the user and the achievement of the training objective. And I think it's a balance we must find between realism through design and what are actually the best clue that could be identified by the user. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I got a little technical issue. I'm asking you just 5 minutes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Ah, good. I'm back. So I have changed the microphone settings. So what's the issue, Géraldine? Sorry.
No, it's fine. I'm back. I'm sorry. Little problem, but now it's all good.
Yeah.
So, is it okay for you, the level of realism and the challenges behind that? And here's an empathy map we use. So we make work our user on describing what actually the user in the game would see, would hear, would think. It is a super tool to make sure that you will have a good presence, a sense of presence, and also to identify the clue, because sometimes the clue that we imagine as adults are not the clue that are felt by teenagers, and it was a very interesting experience to work with that tool with the teenagers. And go. So one other aspect of training I wanted to share, and by that I'll finish with my case study, is we introduced an adult character. Because you must imagine that the game, there are different scenes. So you start in the house of the player, and then when the challenges arrive, you must go in the supermarket, and you can walk by the road, and so on. So there are different places. So we introduced one adult character, the neighbor, for two main reasons: to encourage empathy, knowledge transfer, and to decrease anxiety. Actually, it is highlighted by Laurie Pickett, a researcher and sociologist, that children have considerable strengths that could serve as a significant resource for families, communities, and organizations. Basically, they can contribute to preparedness, response, and also recovery. So the idea with the neighbor is to stimulate this natural energy. So we wanted the teenager to encourage this adult to take the same action, or at least the player should be able to explain what he has learned about hurricane preparedness for certain alerts. And by doing so, the neighbor could help the player for difficult tasks. So this adult representation can also decrease the anxiety of the youth, because it has been proven that some prevention campaigns addressed to children generate anxiety, because they place the responsibility on children to ensure their own protection. So here we find some sort of trick where the teenager will encourage knowledge in the community, and also feel less anxiety because there'll be an adult to also help him. So if you want this kind of training in VR for natural disaster preparedness to work, you need to involve the community and establish the link between adults and players. And I believe this is already the memorization of the tasks that are going to be literally improved when using VR, at least for hurricane preparedness, but the preparation of the psychological state of our children, and that's a super potential of VR. So I'd like to conclude immersive virtual reality, as you understand, has enormous potential for education. Doesn't mean we should give any head-mounted device to children and let them learn alone. Remember, it's suitable for teenagers and can be dangerous for young children. And pedagogy must be entirely rethink, and we must define a new role for teachers. Because VR could offer a higher level of realism and immersion compared to classroom instruction and online teaching materials. And a variety of applications based on virtual reality, as you see, can provide fantastic teaching opportunity for teachers, but also for homeschoolers, and maybe for parents. And to conclude, I would say virtual reality should help our kids understand and enjoy the complexity of reality, not to replace it. Thank you very much for listening. And if you have any questions, I think we can.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, Géraldine.
Thank you.
Wonderful. I mean, there is so much we could talk about and discuss for so many questions, actually, because it's such a relevant topic. But before I open the floor to, let me start with the first question. And you mentioned, I mean, yeah, a lot of areas of application, and I think that's wonderful. Yeah, for kids, what I liked is all this colorful thing, and it looks nice, so it's very playful, which makes a lot of sense. And I think that's something we could use for the adults as well. But one of the questions, I mean, you spoke about things we need to be mindful of, in terms of the age brackets and things like that, and how it impacts the brain. Then the question is, I mean, we have never had experience as adults in this area. How can we assess the impact on children using these technologies, because we don't know them ourselves?
Exactly. It's it's a real challenge in research. We know that they build entire environment, virtual environment, and they try to test specific things, ensuring that all the variables are fixed. But it's a real challenge also because it's in terms of ethics, it's always been a great challenge to do research with children, and obviously no parents will allow an exposure of violent content to their children just to see, okay, are they becoming violent by the end? No, don't want that. It's a real challenge. Also, because we grow up in a world who is completely different. So when we were child, I guess we all experiment the time without internet, without everything like it is now. But this next generation will feel this virtual environment part of their life. And I think the mindset would be different for them. And there are great science fiction movies that show that. But yes, you're totally right, it's a challenge. And maybe that's the reason why it's so controversial in scientific research. But still, we know that it's great for empathy, it's great to work on different high potential for learning, etc. But it can be risky as well, and we must be careful for that.
Absolutely. I mean, I think there's so many opportunities, and so much potential, clearly. And I think we completely underestimate that. But yes, we have to balance that. Let me open the floor. I think you are all unmuted. So who has a question here? I mean, we are a relatively small group, but hopefully there's some good questions because there's so much to discuss. Yeah, Frank.
Yeah, hello, I'm Frank. Hello, Geraldine. Thank you for this information. It was very interesting, and I'd like to know something about your company. What could you explain a little bit about your business model?
Yes, sure. Well, our company we provide online courses. So the launch of our online courses for teacher and homeschooler is due for late June. So it's pretty soon. Lots of work. And also we plan on work directly with schools and bringing VR lab to them. So it's a way for us to iterate on our online course. So that will be the first step for now, and maybe some other application will come in. And the part of our VR-based game, it is more a partnership we want to do. That is not part of a business model, more some kind of experiment we would like to offer, and it's also great for us to have insights. But to be honest, I hope to work with the Red Cross or a company like UNESCO and so on. So this is the idea.
Okay, thank you. Other questions? Thanks, Frank.
And I have a question maybe for you. If you have parents, how many are you parents? Do you have children here in the room? Yes, okay. And do you let your children use VR, or have you tried? How do you decide your way of using that? If someone wants to share, I'm very curious about this because it's brand new, and how do we deal with that as a parent? Does anyone want to share?
Who wants to share? Yeah, Heiko? We can't hear you.
I hear you, Heiko. I'm sorry. Do you have a microphone?
Oops.
Is that better?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I'm always unsure if this is muted or not muted. So this is actually good. So I have three kids. One is too young to use VR right now. I think he's only 2 years old. But I have Zoe. She's 10, and Henry. He's 8 now. And both of them really enjoy VR. Obviously, they can only use it a limited amount of time. Each time they only use it I would say 2 times or 3 times a month we allow it, so they can play some Beat Saber, or they can visit some places. We haven't tried. I mean, they use the Google stuff right now for their homeschooling. I don't think we've tried the VR tours yet, so that's a good point to do. And then it was very interesting. We did a couple of VR birthdays. So I had Henry, my youngest son. He wanted to have a VR birthday where I brought 4 or 5 headsets to the house for all of his friends to play together. And then another friend of mine, he also wanted to have a VR birthday for his son, so I organized the same thing. It was very interesting to see the kids reacted and get immersed by it. And I think they picked it up very well from the whole haptics. And even when I brought home the Oculus Rift for the first time, I think Henry was 5, and he immediately started picking up the small rockets and pulling them and experimenting with them. Which was very funny to watch. So it was interesting what you said about realizing when the concept of reality starts, because sometimes it might be too young to put them into the experiences, even though it might be something simple as Tilt Brush, or there's another game they really like, which is called King Spray, where you can basically go out and do graffiti, which you can't do in real life. They really like this one.
Okay.
So,
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for saying. And what are your challenges as a parent? I mean, do they want to play a lot, or how is it for you?
Well, they definitely want to play a lot, and I mean, you have to. I agree to what you say. What you said. It's important to look at the experiences, and obviously, it's a little bit difficult because you can see by how they move what they're playing. But I mean, I also called my youngest son. He was playing Vader Immortal, which is a Star Wars VR. And I was like, Henry, what are you playing? And he was like, well, I found Zap. So there's still, I think, lots of issues in the terms of how parents can control it. And I mean, there are ways where you can have an iPad and you have children's profiles on it. So I think probably the VR headset also needs something like this moving forward.
Exactly.
It would be good to greenlight certain apps, because obviously if all your apps and the kids' apps are in one place in one library, it's difficult to just leave them alone and give them the headset for half an hour or so.
Exactly. I think it's a real challenge, and what we want in our company is to avoid what's happened with the mobile phone, basically. Because I think what's happened with the mobile phone, that the technology grew faster than we were ready for it, especially for our children. And at the moment, sometimes I see in some family, and I don't blame anyone, I don't want to judge anyone, and I think we do what we can, but sometimes it's used as a babysitter, because we don't see problem, it's fine, they love it, they have fun, they smile, and so on. So that was happened with mobile phone, and teachers now are dealing in classroom with the mobile phone, because all the children are like, yes, well, I can ask questions to the teacher and wait, or I can look from Google and have the answer right now. So this is kind of situation where the technology is going fast, and as a parent, as a teacher, as a homeschooler, we maybe we're not all ready for that. So this is our value. Is like I really think that parents know what is good and what is great for their children, and as you say, it's really fine and fun to see them. How much they enjoy, how much fun they have. My nephew like try all the time some very nice experiments, and they laugh about it, and I love it. However, I think for now it's not super safe. For now, you have, especially in a social platform like here, and you have all kinds of different people, and sometimes behave weirdly. And imagine what can be a social network now on a computer, and how much it's immersive on virtual reality. So if there is a real behavior on a computer, it's already shocking for children. But imagine if it's in a virtual environment where there is a shocking behaviors and your children is exposed to that. So there is a lot of ethical issues right now, but at the same time, it's improving learning at the same time, so children learn faster, and I think this next generation will be much more intelligent than us, will be much more fast than us, and will be able to solve really complex problems. But that's
Yes.
the potential.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I think that which actually goes towards kind of that notion of reverse mentoring and almost reverse schooling.
Exactly.
Yeah. So do you see a point where, I mean, basically the kids are teaching the parents how it works?
I think it's already the case. For now, children are super good at teaching us. But for example, you have this great event hosted in VR, and they organize a set of conferences in VR, and it's students who did that from different ages. And also, as I mentioned, these different software platforms, they encourage students to build themselves. So I think we are going toward a direction where the children is actually going to create his or her own environment for learning, and the teacher will be more here to guide him, to provide the knowledge he wants when he is ready for it. So I think this is more where we're going with VR and education. So yes, children will create their own environment, will create their own way of collaborating in VR, and us as a teacher or mentor will be just here to guide them. So it's a different form.
Absolutely. No, thank you. Absolutely. Any other question here from the group?
Maybe technology question, just because I'm curious, because we're also obviously using different game engines to produce different VR applications, and we're always like, with this, I don't know what your take is, for example, what you use as a technology. I would be interested, and also to hear what your take is on web VR, or how much you're using web VR already.
So, sorry, I'm not sure I got it entirely, but what you mean is like, what is the technology I use today to test, and what is the technology that is the best for children use or for teaching use, right?
Yes, I mean, I was thinking, obviously, when you build inside a game engine like Unreal Unity, you can, you can also put it online partly, but I mean, you maybe use WebVR, maybe it's a lot more controllable for parents also to different websites with different specifications. So I was just curious what type of technology you guys use right now.
Okay, for the design of the environment, we use Unity 3D motor engine. And basically, this software, when you design with Unity, you can decide how you want to export it. So we first wanted to export the game for computer, because here in Guadeloupe, not many students have a VR headset. But you can also decide to export as a VR experience. And when we designed it thinking it will be used for a virtual reality experiment. And after that, if you want to use it for web XR experiment, you need to consider the size of the polygons. Polygons are the elements, let's say, in your environment. So we are thinking to adapt our full experience for a web XR experience, which would be simplified. Let's say the player can go everywhere in different places in the full version, but in a web XR version, it will only be in our home, and the challenge will be the same but simplified. Is that answering the question?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you, Géraldine. Yes, another big hands. Thank you so much. If there are no other questions left, looking at the time, it's just after 8 p.m. here. Thank you so much. It was really insightful, and I think we can share the presentation. There's so much more to see, and then people can reach out to you. And yeah, all the best with your mission. I think it's so important, and it was a pleasure to have you here, Géraldine. I wish you
Thank you.
yeah, all the best, and thanks to you. We have more guests to come. Thanks from the VR Business Club as well, and I wish you a wonderful evening. Thank you so much. Good night.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
I just want to mention, if you're interested in the ebook, you can go xrpedagogy/VR class in capital.
Oh yes, yeah.
Just fulfill your email and I'll send it to you when the English version is fully translated. That'd be my pleasure if you're interested in that.
That's great. Yeah, if you can send that to me as well, and we put that also into the YouTube live. Yeah, so then where more people will watch. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for
Bye.
coming. See you later. Bye bye.
Thank you so much, Géraldine.